Good day, collectors and viewers. Social Distance Warrior is back, and today we're going to look at one of the original 96 Kenner action figures. This one is the Bespin Security Guard. Now, the Bespin Security Guard made his debut on screen way back in 1980 in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. This was episode 5. Our heroes, of course, on the run from the Empire, would make their daring escape in space and head to a planet in the clouds, or a city in the clouds. Cloud City, of course, and the place that they went to was Bespin. So our famous rebels, of course, land there, and then they're greeted by Lando and a bunch of his entourage or security, and that's the Bespin Security Guard. So that's the first time that we'd see them. And of course, they spend some time on Cloud City there, and we at first weren't sure whether our good friend Lando was good or bad. And of course, as the movie went on, we found out that he was looking to look after himself to keep the Empire out as the administrator of Cloud City. And then he found out that, you know, this deal was getting worse all the time with Darth Vader and the Empire. Once they captured the rebels, they decided to take over Cloud City as well. So we got to see the Bespin Security Guards a few times in the movie, at the beginning there when they first landed on Cloud City, and then of course all throughout the city, and then when they made their daring escape, when Lando helped them escape, we got to see them again. We got to see them when Boba Fett was escorting his prize, Han Solo, Frozen and Carbonite, over to Jabba the Hutt. So in figure form, it wouldn't take long. We'd get him in 1980 as well, the Bespin Guard, on the 31 back. That's this guy over here. So this is the first release, and a lot of times on this character here, because of the way his outfit is designed, the gold accents on his vest here are rubbed off. You can see mine's still kind of intact there. It's not completely 100% visible, but it's managed to survive over the years. And this is one of the Bespin Security Guards that we'd see in the movie in action figure form. It's actually a really nice figure. There's not much to it. It's a boring action figure. I'd imagine it was probably a peg warmer at the time, but still, it was an army builder, so it was very smart to get this guy, to make this guy actually produce him for Kenner, because you'd probably need more than one to police your imaginary Cloud City or Bespin playset. So he comes the way you see him over here as far as, you know, sculpting and stuff. You can see the design. It's very simple. He does have a hat on his head. It's not removable. This one does have a mustache. And you can see the eyes are painted Kenner style. As far as articulation, the head does move side to side on our Bespin Guard here. And of course, he does have a blaster in his hand. So that's a common accessory that came with a lot of figures at the time. And that's the one that he comes with as well. You can see it up close. And of course, some of these accessories come in a blue plastic resin. Some of them come in a black plastic resin. This guy comes with a blue one. That's his blaster. It's a nice blaster. It fits nicely in his hand. Let's have a look at the action figure. So there's articulation on his hands. You can see the nice little gold printed accents there on his vest. You can see the little red sleeves that he's got on the top of his blazer there, or shirt. And of course his articulation standard stuff from the legs down here. You can move his legs up. Okay, and down, that's pretty much as far as they go. You can have them standing, sitting. If we lift them up underneath, you can see they just have the foot pegs there, so you can stand them in all your different play sets or on your stands, whichever ones you prefer. So that's our Bespin Security Guard from the front, and that's what he looks like from the side. And then if we turn around to the back, that's what he looks like from the back. So not much to this guy, not the most exciting action figure. And on the back here, we can also see that it does say Hong Kong, and I believe it says 1980 if you look at it closely there. So a lot of these characters have the imprints on the back of their pant legs, and this guy's no exception. So he holds his blaster nicely there after all these years. That's not an issue. And 40 plus years later, that's our Bespin Guard from the original Kenner 96 line. Okay, so we get one more Empire Strikes Back version of that Bespin Security Guard. It would be a couple years later. So in 1982, on the Empire Strikes Back 45 back, we'd get a different version. So we get the version that's we'll later called Isdam Edian. And I'll throw a picture up of him here. So he was another character that we saw in the movie, one of the Bespin security guards. And so this would give you some differentiation between the two of them. You had a light-skinned guard and you had a dark-skinned guard that you could put in your playset or in your diorama. I unfortunately don't have one, but we'll throw a picture up, of course, so we can have a look. So that's all we'd get for the original Kenner line of those 96 figures. We wouldn't get any other Bespin guards. We wouldn't see anything, even when the Power of the Force 2 made its triumphant return in the 90s, and thankfully we never got a beefed up version of that Bespin security guard, because a lot of the figures were beefed up, but it was strangely omitted from a lot of the figures that were coming out that we never got that action figure, because that was one of the main one of the original characters that we had, and it was of course a high demand figure from fans and collectors to get into the line. And we get our prayers answered kind of in 2001. So Power of the Jedi line would come out. Once episode 1 came out, they merged the lines. Then they merged them together, original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and they called it Power of the Jedi. And we had a carbon freeze chamber playset, which we'll throw a picture of up. And like some of the playsets did come with at the time, this one came with an action figure. So much to our rejoice, we finally got a Bespin security guard. So that's this guy over here. So much to our rejoice or not, this is the figure that we got. So it's an interesting character. For a lot of the characters that they Kenner released or Hasbro released in the Power of the Force 2 line, if it came with a playset, at times it was a kit-bashed figure. I don't know what it was, but we get these weird, strangely kit-bashed figures. And it's just something about this character looks like it's either missing or something was added or thrown together, because it proportionally he just doesn't look right. Something looks off with him. He definitely looks like a Bespin security guard, but you know, I'd argue that the original one that we have over here looks better than this guy. It looks more realistic than this guy and looks better than this guy. So he comes in an action pose. His hands are kind of just bent into position. His legs are strangely apart, and he's got a really thin waist here. They never took the time to make or sculpt a vest on. They just painted those gold accent lines over the shirt, and then even the red on the sleeves is not even the right color. The original one puts it to shame. But that's the figure that we got with the carbon freezing chamber, and I was, of course, excited to get the figure because we never had a Bespin guard at the time. So as far as articulation on this guy, let's have a look at his head sculpt. We'll bring it up close just to see him. So you can see that he's got the hat on, and the hat's got the gold accents painted across it. Doesn't really look that realistic because they're not supposed to be that gold, but you know, a lot of the Power of the Force 2 stuff was exaggerated. I'm not sure what likeness they were going for on the figure, but he doesn't look like anybody that we see in the movie or in the background. He actually looks familiar to some famous people, which we'll leave up to your imagination here. But that's the character that we got. He's got a white collar there. You can see if we work our way down over here, articulation wise, we can turn his head side to side. Okay, we can move his arms up and down. Again, the arms are just at a fixed position. There, you can turn them at the waist like all the Power of the Force 2 figures you could at the time. And of course, legs. Legs can move up and down. That's pretty much it with this guy. So that's what our Bespin guard looks like from the freeze chamber, from the front. We lift him up underneath. We can see that he does have foot pegs, but no mention of where he was made. We'll have a look at the back for that in a sec. That's what he looks like from the side. So he's got a bit of a slant in his pose. Okay, and then that's what he looks like from the back as well. And on the back there, we can see on the pant leg, it does say 1996 Kenner China. So even though this figure came out in 2001, that's a kit-bashed figure. That's somebody else's legs. Feel free to throw it up in the comments there if you know whose legs those are. I'm going to jump out and say they're probably a Han Solo figure's legs. And you can see there's a big gap between his crotch area and the legs there as well. If you hold that up into the light there, you can see, you can tell that he's kit-bashed. But that's the figure that we got. I guess we can't really complain. It was a figure that was included with the playset, but that was our first Bespin security guard. Okay, so same year, we get a single figure release of a Bespin security guard, and of course this one is much better. Okay, this figure here also came on the Power of the Jedi, but as a single figure release. So he came on the card back, and he came with a freeze frame, not a freeze frame. They came with these Jedi Force files. I actually dug mine out so I can show that to you. So all the figures that came out of the Power of the Jedi line, the initial release anyway, because once they got, I think, to the second year, they just put photos up. But they came with these Force files. So this is a pretty neat thing. So they've got a nice picture of the character here on the front. It's a still. It almost looks a little bit photoshopped. I don't know if we ever see him exactly in that pose, but that's the character that we're going to get as the release as well. And you can see here on the front it says Bespin Guard, Cloud City Security. And if we turn that around to the back, that's what you'd see on the back of the card back, because where it sat on the card back, there was a clear area there, and it says some more statistics on the character. It gives you a nice little bio or description from the movie. I used to love these things. I love getting little pack-in stuff that I can look at or read. I'd imagine a lot of people did as well. And as we open it up here, we can see there's more information on the character. Now, an interesting thing here is they actually gave the figures statistics. So they'd say, they give him a strength statistic. So to say whether he was strong or weak, or whether he came in between or balanced. It didn't really take it anywhere. I don't know if it was meant to be for sort of a game that you could play on the Star Wars Hasbro website, but didn't really pay attention to it. But then it gives you some information on the guard over here and the little areas that he's in the movie. And then, of course, some more description there on the inside. It talks about his skill set. And then, of course, shows what accessories he uses. And what's neat here is that all those accessories that you see there, he actually comes with. It shows you some tech from Bespin as well. Now, this guy doesn't drive the twin pod cloud car, but again, they're mentioning it there, and they're also mentioning the carbon freezing chamber as well. And then there was some sort of a mail away there, membership mail away, where you could send it in for Jedi Quest Kids. So this, of course, is intended for kids, because that's where Star Wars came for all of us. So we turn that around to the back. Let's just see if there's anything extra here on the back. The only thing that was missing that I haven't showed you on the back is here. It shows you the allies of the Bespin Guard and then the enemies of the Bespin Guard. So it gives you a little more character descriptions and stuff to look for and collect. I don't think they made an Ugnaught at the time, but they definitely made a Lando. Lobot, no. Chewbacca, there was a Chewbacca. There's always a Darth Vader. There was a Stormtrooper. Boba Fett and TIE Pilot weren't in the Power of the Jedi line, but I'm sure that they're just trying to tell you all the characters that you could get as well. So that's the Force file that these characters would come with, and it comes in a nice little booklet form, but that's what they came with instead of a stand or any Comtech device that they were coming with initially in the episode 1 line. So the figure itself is this guy here. Now you can see this one is a way different than the figure I just showed you from that carbon freezing chamber. That was the Kit Bash figure. Strangely enough, they came out in the same year, but this one is light years beyond that one over there. This is actually a very nice figure. He sits in my display. So he's supposed to be the character that we saw on the front of that Force file. Let's just bring that up for a sec. That's supposed to be him there. He does have that hat on. They didn't paint the gold accents on there because there actually shouldn't be any gold accents on the hat. But that's his head up close. Let's just have a look at him there. You can see there's nice detail. They've come a long way. They've gotten more realistic with the figures as well once they hit the Power of the Jedi. And then that hat is removable too, which is neat. So that comes right off, pops off. And if you had numerous versions of this guy, you could have different characters if you wanted to in the background. One with the hat on, one with the hat off, or have one in battle, one not in battle. But that's what he looks like without the hat on as well. So let's put that hat back on. It looks a little bit weird without it. The hat is a little bit oversized, but that's okay. He does have accessories here. Now, a couple of mine have fallen off here. And what's neat about them is that they actually attach onto him. So we're going to look at that in a second here. He does have a blaster that's in the holster over here. That comes out. So you can see he's got that blaster, and it's authentic to the movie. It's not painted, but it's a much more realistic one than that came with that original figure at the time. So it's got a nice little handle, design on the handle, and of course the barrel and the trigger. Everything is painted on this guy. I mean, it's detailed on this guy over here. That sits. So that was very new for us, because you actually had a holster where you could take that blaster and put it in, and that was a new design element that started coming out with the Power of the Jedi line, where they actually had sockets or holsters on the side, and the biker scouts would have it down on the boot on the bottom there. So as far as the figure himself, He does have articulation here at the head. You can turn him side to side. Okay, what's neat here about his vest, unlike the one that came with the carbon freezing chamber, this is a separate piece that sits over his chest there and gives it a nice look and design, and a lot more realistic than that other figure was. Arm articulation, his arms move up and down. He does have a swivel here at the elbow, so you can turn him at the elbow, swivel it back and forth. No articulation here at the hand, but at the elbow there. He's got like a pointing finger there as well. As we move down over here, we can see he can turn at the waist. So you have that added articulation there as well. The legs move up. Nothing gets in the way, which is nice. If you wanted to sit him down, you could. And he has that same articulation on both legs. Now, I do have a set of handcuffs that I'm holding in my hand here, which is neat. You can take that and, arrest one of your rebels or one of your Imperials, stick the handcuffs on them. They're a little bit wide apart, so if your character is not with proper articulation, that's not going on both arms. That's maybe going on one arm, or it's going on his neck. That's not going on both hands unless you have proper articulation on your character. But it does have a little peg here on the back, and that little peg plugs in nicely on the front of this guy. Look at the added articulation on these guys here. In case you don't own this figure, you may want to once you see that. That slips on right there, and you can have his handcuffs sitting there on the front, and then have his blaster sitting here on the side. Now, he also does have a baton. Let's just take that out and look at it. So he's got a little baton. No, it's not a small lightsaber, and it's not the one that R2-D2 shoots out. Don't get too excited. That one's green. That's not the lightsaber, but this is his baton. It's almost like a police baton, crowd control that he carries as well. And that thing's got a spot to put on this character as well. So I don't know who designed the Bespin Guard, but there's a lot of love and thought put into the character. Someone put a lot of passion into it. That baton actually attaches on the back over here. There's a little peg hole there on the back. So you can put that baton there, probably sideways. Or potentially, I guess you could put the handcuffs there as well if you wanted to put the baton from the front. But you've got a spot to put all of the accessories, so everything can go in its spot. And that's pretty neat. That's actually unheard of at the time when you're going all the way back to 2001. So that's our Bespin security guard, Cloud City security from the front. That's what he looks like underneath. He does have foot pegs there underneath, and it does say 2000 Lucasfilm Limited, and then Hasbro China on the other foot. And that's what he looks like from the side. And then that's what he looks like from the back. And of course, I have that baton attached there on the back. But you can see the gold accents run all the way around the back, which is nice. The figure's in a bit of an action stance. He doesn't have any knee articulation, but he sits nicely. It's a welcome addition if you have the Carbon Freeze Chamber playset. The newer one, this guy, he fits right in. He doesn't stand out like a sore thumb like this guy. This guy you don't want to put anywhere near there unless you want to freeze him in carbonite. But this one over here, he can easily stand in there and have things under control. So that's our Bespin security guard from Power of the Jedi. Okay, now since the Bespin security guard's not the most desired action figure, we wouldn't get another version of him until 2009, but Hasbro was moving out and making a lot of background characters once the Star Wars movies were done. So all we had was a Clone Wars animated cartoon. Star Wars was done because George Lucas had made Revenge of the Sith, and that came out in 2005. So there wasn't really any media to use to make those original figures. So it was definitely based on how good they can make these figures and how much they could keep the collectors happy to keep buying them, keep them excited. And we get a brand new Cloud City Wing Guard in 2009, and this would be Sergeant Edian. Now again, they've got names now where they never used to have names, and that's this one over here. So again, it's an updated version of that original release that came out way back in the original trilogy in 1982. And you can see the figure itself. One thing that always jumped out at me the time when this figure came out, I love the fact that he's got the added articulation, but the parts on the vest, on his jacket here, where they're supposed to be like a goldish tang, they went with a silverish tang. Now, they tried to mimic what was actually in the movie, but that goldish tang is kind of what gives it that extra flair or pop from the original figure. Because I mean, just like Han Solo's jacket in Hoth, you can argue whether it's blue or whether it's brown, and it's actually supposed to be brown, but it shows up as blue in the movie. You can argue with this one as well, that they're actually silver, it's not gold. But again, you could argue that the original one was gold, and that's why gold would look a lot better on this one as well. But that's the figure, and you can see how far we've come. And Sergeant Idayan over here, he's got a really awesome sculpt. He's got full articulation now that we never had before, so this is all a new avenue for us for the Star Wars figures. As far as his head sculpt, let's bring that close just so we can see it. You can see they've come a long way with the realism on these heads, and the head now are sitting on a ball joint, which is awesome. So you can take them right off there and put someone else's on, or you can customize these guys. You can do whatever you want. He does have that hat on here, and that hat is removable once again, which is awesome. And you can just have a look at how far these figures have come. Full articulation, you can go side to side, up and down, and again you can remove the head if you had to as well. But that's our Bespin security guard with the hat off. Let's put the hat back on, and let's have a look at his articulation from the neck down. So as far as the arms here, we have full articulation there at the shoulder. So we have a ball joint there as well, and you can fully articulate this figure up and down, side to side, forward, back. And of course you have that at the elbow as well, up and down. And then over here at the wrist, you can turn his wrist as well. So full articulation there. And they've painted that sleeve red, which is awesome. As far as articulation here at the waist on the character, you can turn them side to side. You'll notice as we moved our way down below the waist here, that he does have a holster here on the one side, and that's got his baton in there. So we can take that baton out. He's got a nicely painted silver baton that sits in that holster right there nicely, and that holster is removable. It's got a little socket there that comes off if need be. I don't take mine off. If I take it off, I'll lose it. And then, of course, on the other side, he's got a holster with the blaster pistol. His blaster comes out there, and you can see how far they've come with the blaster pistols as well. They even went more realistic than that last one, and they've painted it. They've painted the barrel silver, and then the body part of the blaster pistol a different color, a darker brown color, and that just sits in this holster right there on the side. If we work our way down over here, we can see articulation wise at the hip, his legs go up and down, and of course his knees bent, so you can bend his knees there. He does have ankle articulation here as well, so you can turn his boot down and side to side. So they've gone all out with this figure and made him a nice army builder if you had a Cloud City playset or scene that you wanted to put him in. So that's what our Bespin security guard looks like from the front. Okay, and this is what he looks like underneath, and you can see underneath there that you do have foot pegs, and it does say 2009 Lucasfilm Limited on the one boot, and on the other boot it says Hasbro China. I always like to read that, don't ask me why, but that's the standard look of this guy from the front. Let's have a look at him from the side. You can see the detail there from the side, and then if we turn around to the back, we can see that that accent comes all the way around, that silver accent, and just around the collar here as well. And he's got nice creasing on his outfit as well, so it's a very welcome updated version of the Bespin security guard. That's an update of that original one that we saw. So we get one more version, same thing in 2009. They'd make an alternating change on the, I guess you can say, on the figure wave. When they're releasing it, they made a different version of the Bespin security guard. They made one of the ones that was an alien in the background. His name is Utris M-Talk, if I'm pronouncing that right. That's this guy over here. So it's basically exactly the same figure that we just looked at for Sergeant Idayan. But you can see he's got a brand new head sculpt. Now, you might be looking at this guy and wondering, why does he have blue cheeks and blue on his forehead? Well, that's because this guy's an alien. This is not a human over here. This is an alien figure. Now, you probably don't remember him in the movie because I don't think he actually was in the movie. He was in a still, in a background photo. So he was actually just in the background. But to pay homage to all that stuff that was happening in the background, they actually made this character. So we have numerous different versions now. We had the original release one with the mustache. Then, of course, we had Sergeant Idayan. And then, of course, we had the one that was released, I don't even know what his name was, the Bespin security guard from Cloud City on the Power of the Jedi line. And then this guy over here, we're not going to count that guy, okay? He doesn't even have a name. So, but this guy here, again, brand new security guard. Now exactly the same articulation and figure from the head down, but we'll bring it up nice and close just so you can see that he's a different figure because of that head sculpt. Now, they did this running change with a couple of characters. They did it with the Bespin security guard, And then they also did it with the Ugnaught as well. The Ugnaught also came in two different versions, and they were slightly different. They're actually different molds. One was a blue, one was a gray mold, and slightly different height as well. So this guy here, welcome addition, and again, a very nice action figure that he sits nicely on your display. He's stood the test of time very well. Okay, so we'd have to wait a number of years, but we'd finally get a vintage collection version of the Bespin Security Guard, and we'd be lucky enough not to get just one, but two different versions on two different card backs. So the first one we're going to look at is Hyder Spinoza. So that's this guy here, and again, this is a updated version of the original release figure. So you can see how awesome he looks on the card back here. Empire Strikes Back card back, and it's got the name pill there, Bespin Security Guard, Hyder Spinoza, and there's the movie still from the movie, and you can see that that's supposed to be that character, the original one that we had over here, and here is the updated version of the character. Now, it's got a nice big bright orange bubble, makes the figure pop nicely. On that card back, it's got the Kenner logo here. Unfortunately, he only comes with the one accessory, which is the gun. We've kind of disappeared on the accessory front. It would have been nice to have the handcuffs or to have the baton that the other two figures had, but this one doesn't get that. He gets the added articulation and an updated sculpt though. So let's just have a look at the card back as well. So on the back there, we'll see that he's VC number 233, and there's some of the other figures that he was released with. The Stormtrooper, the Death Star Imperial Gunner, the Bespin Security Guard, and of course R2-D2 with that pop-up periscope. So those are the figures that came with this figure. Now let's have a look at him out of the package as well. We have him just over here at the front. So here's Hyder Spinoza, or Bespin Security Guard. So this is our updated version of that original one. A lot of things come to mind with this character. I love that they went back to the gold. So they've gone back to having that accent on the front of his vest in gold instead of silver or gray, whatever they had on the Legacy Collection version. So that's a nice welcome addition. They do have the red here on the sleeves. It's probably not as bright red as I hope it would be, but it's definitely a nice looking action figure. You'll notice that they've done a weird cut on his chest over here on the front, and I know a lot of people aren't happy with it, but I got to tell you, I'm ecstatic that they actually made a Bespin Security Guard. I didn't think we're going to get another version of him, so having him in the collection is definitely welcome, and it completes that 96, which we're hoping to finish up. So having a look at the head sculpt close up, you can see that he's got his hat on his head there, and that it's got black painted on the hat. So if you looked at the stills in the picture, you'll notice that the hats on the character card, they actually do have black lines on there. They're not creases, they're actually black lines, and he does have that mimicked on his head there as well. The hat, unfortunately, is not removable. That's how it sits. You can see the articulation. His head is on a ball, so you can go forward, down, you can go side to side. He does have full motion there. Okay, the head seems a little bit small, but again, it's a Bespin Security Guard. I'm not really that concerned with the character himself. As far as arm articulation, he does have a swivel there, or a ball right at the top of his shoulder. Same thing at his elbow here. You can do full articulation movements there. And of course, at the wrist, you can go side to side. And the wrist has that added articulation where you can actually, just like a Black Series figure, turn it down as well. So you get added articulation on these guys as well. He could take a full sip of a drink when he's sitting in the bar in Bespin. So that's articulation on the hands and the arms. As far as the waist here, he's got a cut here on the chest where you can turn him side to side. So you have the articulation of turning him. And of course, he does go back and forward. So you can have him in battle poses. You can have him laying down. You can have him dead on the ground after the Imperial Stormtroopers, took over Cloud City. So you can do a lot of stuff with this guy. One thing I do like when you do bring that the chest back, you can see that the painted accents go all the way up to the edge inside there so that it doesn't take it away if you had him laying in that position. Okay, so that's a nice little added feature that they didn't cheap out on the paint job on the character. They've gone full out. We work our way down. We'll notice that we don't have anything here at the bottom of the waist because you have that articulation up over here. Now again, preference. Some people like it, some don't. On the side here, we'll notice that he does have a holster for his gun. And his gun does come out. That's the pistol there. It's funny. I find that pistol that came with the Legacy version is better than this one. It's got more paint apps on it than this guy does. This one just has black on the handle, and the rest of it is a very flat gray. But as far as the sculpting on it, it's done very well. It's very accurate, which is neat, and that just sits inside of his holster there. We'll put that back just so we don't lose it. And then we'll look at articulation down here as well. Now he does have ball joints here at the hips as well, so you can move those legs all the way up and out. You can bend him at the knees, and of course you can bend down his boot ankle there as well. And he doesn't have the rocker ankles. You can just go back and forth on him. It's probably because his boots have the sides coming up over. They didn't want to add that added articulation, so that's not on the boots. That's what he looks like from the front, our Bespin Guard. And let's have a look underneath. That's what it looks like underneath. And then of course underneath there, I can't even read it. This is tiny, but it does say Hasbro. Oh, maybe I can read it this way. It does say Hasbro China, and then it does say, it looks like 2021 on the other boot over there. Okay, Lucasfilm Limited. So that's what he looks like underneath. There's our Bespin Guard from the side. And then that's what he looks like, Hyder Spinoza, from the back as well. And you can see that black accent and the wrinkles in his clothing going around the back there as well, and the gold accent around the top and around the bottom of his blazer or vest, what you prefer. So that's the Hyder Spinoza. That's the updated version of that original character that we got way back in 1982 and now updated in 2022. Okay, so we said we got 2 releases of the Bespin Security Guard in the Vintage Collection in 2022. So we got that initial one that we just looked at, Hyder Spinoza, and then we got the other release that initially came out back in 1982, Isdam Edian, this guy over here. So in the Legacy Collection version that we just looked at a little while back, he was actually just called Sergeant Edian at the time. So I think as time passed, every one of these characters got names. That's one thing with Star Wars. It got so big that they had to go back and name every single background character and give him a story, which is pretty neat. So that's this guy on card back. You can see it's a different card back than the other one that we were looking at over there. And it's a nice scene there with the stormtroopers in the back in Cloud City. He's got a different name pill color and background, which is nice. It makes them both stand out instead of having them looking exactly the same. It's basically exactly the same figure you can see in there. He just comes with a gun, no extra accessories, but of course he's got a brand new head sculpt, and we're going to look at that character in a second. So that's his card back there from the front, paying homage to that original figure. And then let's have a look in the back. So on the back here, we can see that he's VC number 239. And then of course, here's the other figures, and it's the other version of the Bespin Security Guard there, the Stormtrooper, the Gunner, and of course R2 and the other Security Guard. So that's the card back. Let's have a look at the figure outside of the package as well. That's him over here. Isdam Edian. Okay. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm doing my best there, but that's the character. I prefer to call him Bespin Security Guard, but then I'd have to call him Bespin Security Guard 1 or Bespin Security Guard 2. But you can see it's exactly the same sculpt for the character. He does have a nice, gold touch there. On this one, it's shining maybe a little bit better than that previous one was. But he's got a brand new head sculpt on there. So let's bring that up just to show you. So just like that vintage figure, we do have 2 versions of our Bespin Security Guard that we can put in our carbon freezing chamber playset, which came out years before this thing. It would have been nice to have these guys then, but I guess it's never too late. If you already have the playset, you can now populate it with the figures. So that's the head for this guy over here, and you can see full articulation. Head is on a ball. It can go back and go forward. The face sculpts on these things are awesome. I can't give it enough praise. I don't know if I can get the angle in there right, just so you can see how well his eyes are painted. One thing I love about my action figures is when the face is painted perfectly. I know some of the original figures that were coming out, especially the stuff in the Power of the Force 2, if they weren't painted well, you might as well throw the figure in the garbage. Like if you had cross-eyed, if he was cross-eyed, or if you had one eye painted and one eye painted smaller, it made the figure look horrendous. And I'd always pay attention, as I'm sure a lot of people did, to that face sculpt when they were buying these figures in the stores. And thankfully, since I can't find these guys in the stores and have to buy a lot of them online from online retailers or smaller, hobby stores, thankfully it hasn't been hit and miss. It's been hit. The quality control has been good. Let's keep that up. Kenner. I'm very happy with that quality control. Let's keep these guys coming out on the bubbles, because that's how we're going to finish the original 96. So that does it for our Bespin Security Guard review. I hope that you've liked it. Again, you can see in the background here, you have a lot of different versions of this guard that you can use in your dioramas and part of your collection. I'm hoping that there's one here that maybe you were passed on, and now you're looking at, you're saying, oh, you know what, I got to have that one. I got to find them. That's what these reviews are all about. There's something special about every single one of them. Even our lonesome guy over here, he's still a Bespin Security Guard that was released. Probably not one that I'm going to display, but one that was released. So, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.